Hey there, it's me, Nate, and let's talk about what I'm reading this week. So, last week I talked about how I was going to start reading The Novice by Taran Matharu, and I finished that. The review for that will be going out tomorrow, so look forward to that. As for my general kind of impression, I didn't think very highly of it on this reread. It had been several years since I read this, probably nearly 10 years. But anyway, I didn't. There was a couple things I liked about it, but overall, I had a pretty negative impression of it. I did try a little bit of the second book, The Inquisition, and to see if it improves, but I don't really think it does. So, not going to be continuing with that series. As for what I'm going to be reading next, I actually bought a couple of books to kind of mix things up a little bit. So firstly, I have The Last Wish by Andrzej, I think it's Sapkowski is his name. I'm sure I butchered that, but this is the first book of the Witcher series. And as for The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, when that came out in 2015, it blew my mind in terms of, in video games. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and I got really into, like, the lore and stuff, and the kind of, the surrounding details, but I never read the books. So years ago, when I was trying to get, looking into, like, some details about, like, more hardcore fantasy and stuff like that, I was like, hey, I should just read the Witcher books. So, I usually always do things by publication order, not chronologically. So, in the West, the first book published was actually The Sword of Destiny, which is the second Witcher book. And I didn't realize this at the time. So, I picked up The Sword of Destiny, and I was reading it, and I was like, I feel like I already went into it knowing that it was, like, more a collection of stories about Geralt, but then I was like, I feel like I'm already still missing context in terms of, like, how the progression of the books go. So I ended up DNFing it at the time, but then, last year, when I was, like, kind of, like, putting together, like, a stack of books to go through, I found out that The Last Wish is actually the first book, but because of issues with publication and translation, they ended up publishing The Sword of Destiny first in America. But long story short, I decided to go ahead and pick up The Last Wish, because I still have my copy of The Sword of Destiny, and I was thinking, you know what, I have this, I should just go ahead and pick up The Last Wish, and I'm glad I did, because I'm not super far in. I'm probably like 10% in. It's, it's not a long book. I've only finished, like, the first story in here in The Last Wish, and it was really good. I already knew what happened in that first story just from context from, like, playing the games. But I really enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed this, like, first introduction to Geralt. So this will probably be my my review for next week. But yeah, so I'm, pretty early on in The Last Wish I'm pretty early on the Last Wish. I was going to try to attempt the author's name again. I'm like, I'm not even going to try. So I did pick up another book, which was Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. So I had, for those who may remember who have watched it, in that long ass book haul / like TBR video I had put out, one of the books I had mentioned I had picked up was Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. And so Mark Lawrence, all of his books are kind of like in trilogies. He has the Prince of Thorns, the Red Sister trilogy. He has, like, the Broken Empire, which is, like, the sequel trilogy to Prince of Thorns, and then he has a couple others went. But that was before, like, so I picked up Red Sister because it sounded interesting. But I found out that some of his trilogies have connections to them. Like, obviously, the Prince of Thorns and the Broken Empire trilogy, Broken Empire takes place, like, directly after or, like, concurrently with Prince of Thorns. But, like, Red Sister and, like, his Library trilogy, they're, like, even if they're, like, I think they're on different worlds, like, it's, like, connected, like, universe-wise. So I was like, you know what, I just want full context. Like, if there ends up being, like, references between, like, some of his books, I'll just start with his first book and go from there. So that's why I picked up Prince of Thorns. So after The Last Wish, this Prince of Thorns will be the next book I read. This will actually also be my first Grimdark book. I know Prince of Thorns can be pretty divisive for people. Even among Mark Lawrence fans, a lot of people hate the protagonist of Prince of Thorns. So I wound up seeing where I go with it. A lot of people can't get past what's his name, the main character, Jorg. A lot of his issues. Because for those who don't know, in Prince of Thorns, it takes place. Let's see, the main character, when he was 9, he witnessed his mother being violated and violated and murdered, and as well as his little brother being murdered. And he manages to get away, I think. And then by the time he's like a teenager, he becomes like part of like a gang of like killers. And it's Prince of Thorns, like the trilogy, because there's 3, yes, there's 3 books in a trilogy. There's Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, and Emperor of Thorns. So basically, it's like Jorg's like kind of like, because of the tragedy he suffered as a child, he becomes like this twisted, like kind of evil individual, and it's kind of like his rise to power and like kind of like taking back what he thinks is his. And a lot of people despise Jorg. They consider him like a monster, regardless of like the tragedies and stuff that he has suffered. So I'll have to see if how I feel about him as a character when I get to Prince of Thorns. And because a lot of people, like, I hear it's like some people read the first chapter and it's like, I can't handle it, I hate Jorg, and they just kind of, they DNF there. So I'll see where I land. And let me go back for a second. So with The Witcher, I think between the show, the game, and kind of just like, in just like a general, like kind of cultural sense, a lot of people know what The Witcher is about. But regardless, I will, go ahead and give you kind of like just a brief like glimpse of what The Witcher world is kind of about, and who Geralt is. Because, there might be somebody who doesn't know, who's like literally just like walks in and it's like, oh, I've heard of The Witcher, but I have no idea what it's about. So The Witcher takes place in like your kind of like typical kind of like medieval, like, like medieval European inspired fantasy world. There's like creatures like elves and vampires and monsters and dragons and everything that you're kind of associated with. But humans, through the power of like magic and alchemy, they created this basically special, like basically mutants, like mutated humans, and they call them Witchers. And Witchers, after they go through their training and like they learn their mutations and like they form knowledge, about like the creatures they hunt, they basically become mercenaries for hire, or monster hunters for hire. And the Witcher series follows Geralt of Rivia, and he is a Witcher, and they kind of like chronicle his path. I think like the first 2 books are like, so they're The Last Wish, the first book, and the second book, The Sword of Destiny, and those kind of follow Geralt across like multiple different stories and like kind of him going along the path of being a Witcher, a monster hunter. And I don't know if they introduce Ciri in the first book or the second book, but Ciri is kind of like this like special kind of like prophesized magical child that Geralt meets. And so the series is kind of like this story of Geralt and Ciri, and Yennefer, who's also like, who's Geralt's love interest. It's kind of like the story of the 3 of them kind of like raising and like protecting Ciri while dealing with like political forces between the different nations and kings, and and these like magical forces that are like trying to like either take advantage or like eliminate Ciri. So that's kind of like the general synopsis of what the Witcher series is about. But let's see, and I don't think I have any other real updates. This is a pretty quick one. But yeah, just make sure to look out for my review of The Novice tomorrow, and I should have a review out for The Last Wish next week. So I'll be looking forward to that. But yeah, so until next time, have a good day. If you could, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, have a good day.